Okay, let's look at this mechanism of the 2018 paper. There's a starting point over here given to you that coincides with the starting point 0 that you see there. So what we basically have here, if we interpret, we have a crank, which is AO, is the crank that rotates around its own axis of O, and then attached to that is a rod AB, and on the AB rod there is a point C with another rod attached there, CD. AB slides on FG. That's a slider, it goes back and forth like that. So B is basically in a slot where it goes back and forth. If I could just zoom in and make it more clearer as to what happens here. Great. And then this goes through E, which is a swivel point there. So this just works around that point there, and this basically just slides back and forth as this rotates around its own axis. So the first thing that we're going to do very quickly is to draw this given shape there. Alright, I'm just going to put that aside. I'm going to start with my circle, and in my circle I'm going to find that I have a 75 diameter, and I've got a 37.5 radius which I'm going to be working with. So I'm going to take my ruler and open it up at 37.5, which is going to be right there, 37.5. Put it in the middle and draw a nice circle like that right around. Okay, perfect. And once I have that, I can take my compass, which I've drawn, and I'm taking my T-square. Then I'm going to just draw center lines horizontal to that. I'm going to carry on with the center line because I'm going to need it a little bit later on as well. And then I am going to draw a vertical center line through here as well. Okay. Then immediately I can darken this OA crank here, because that is an actual crank there. I'm going to label it O, and that's A. Then there is a rod AB that slides on FG, so FG is 30 above the middle line. So let me just put that in there. Here's my slide, and I'm going to label that as FG slide, and B is attached 105 from A. So I'm going to take my compass, open up this 105. So 105 is there, and 0, and then I'm going to put it on A and mark it off. If I mark this, this is my point B attached to the slide, and I'm going to draw a thick dark line because that's an actual rod that we see there. Then there's a point C, 53 from B. So let's measure that while we're at it. Nice dark point there. That's point C. The swivel E is here at the bottom. How do we find that? We measure down from the center line, 27. You draw a fine construction line like that. Then 83 from the center line here is where we're going to find, and that must coordinate like that. That is the swivel point. Make it nice and dark. Is going to be E, and then the rod CT runs through the swivel, so I'm going to draw that line there. But the length of that is not given here, but they do tell you here that CD is 90, and that is where you're going to take your compass. I'm going to use another compass and say 90 millimeters, 90, and then from there I'm just going to mark it off. That now is going to be my point D that I have there, and I'm going to darken this there. Alright, let's make this a little thicker. That's my given. Immediately after that, I'm going to divide my circle into 12 parts, all through the middle, using my 30 and my 60. Like that, and like that. My rotation, as I read from my instruction page, is a clockwise. So clockwise is going to go up, and that runs in that order. Because it goes this way, I'm going to label this as number 1, number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Okay. Now I have to start my construction. Remember, if this turn and it goes to 1, that slides that way, that moves automatically with the rod. This pushes through this point actually moves. So what I need to find is to trace, according to the instruction, the loci generated by point C, which is that point there, and point D, one complete rotation of the crank OA. This crank must go right around. Let's do that. For this exercise, I'm going to use my ruler, and I'm going to use my compass. My compass I'm going to open up at that there. That is going to be my rod AB, right? And I'm going to use another compass for CD, which is 90, and for the measurement of 53 here, I'm going to have CB being 53 with my ruler. Okay, so that's how I'm going to go about my business, tracing those points. So step 1, 3 steps. I'm going to go to, from here, A, I'm moving to 1. It's rotating now. So my A slides, sorry, my AB slides now there. Once I have that, I'm going to connect that point to my number 1 point, which is there. I'm going to connect it. On that B now, BA line, I need to measure 53. So 53 is going to be right there, right here now. That's my 53, and I want to label it as number 1 there. Okay, there's my 53. I'm checking it. 53, there it is. Okay. Sorry, no, slight mistake. Let me go back here. 53 is going to be from this point here now. There. Okay, that is for that 53 there on this one. This 53 is going to move from this point here to that point over there. So that actually is my number 1. I just remove that. That's my number 1 point. At that very moment, this thing slides through there. Now I need to take my 91, which is that one there, and mark it from there. Yeah. So my number 1 point is going to be here for the D. That's number 1 there. That's number 1 for C. Okay. Watch carefully. I move to number 2. Put it on number 2 there. I arc. No, sorry. Apologies, wrong one. It's number 2. The right. That's for my longer AB one there. Put that away that side. I draw from here to number 2. Draw number 2. I measure from that 53. There's my is my point. That's number 2. And remember that 2 slides through this. I'm going to take this away. It slides through that swivel point there. And then I take my 90 from there to get my number 2 here. So that's my number 2 there. Okay. Watch carefully. I take this one, right, the wrong one please, onto number 3, sharpen on number 3, and I arc, right. I draw a line from that arc, number 3 to that number 3 there. I measure 53 away, which is there. I mark it clearly, 3. That 3 slides through the swivel, and I take my 90 from that 3 to create my 3 over here. Let's follow number 4. Number 4 is here, there, arc. Watch where my arcing is. Right, I take my ruler to number 4. Number 4, I measure off from that 53. There's my 53. I mark that clearly. The 53 is going to be number 4. That number 4 moves through my swivel point here. And I cut off that number 4 there. That's my number 4. Okay. Let's go to the number 5. Number 5 here. That's my number 5. I arc, right? That's where I arced on the slider. I draw the line to number 5. I measure from that 53. On that line, there's my 53. I mark this point as number 5. That number 5 point there goes through my swivel. There, I take my 90 from number 5. I arc it here. That's my 5 there. Right, my 6. Be careful which one you draw. My 6 there. Cut it off there. That is where my 6 is now on my slider to my number 6. That's my number 6 there. My 53 from that point there. That's my 53 there. I mark that. That is number 6 there. Okay, that number 6 which I have there goes through my swivel point there, and from that 6 point there I mark off the 6 point that I need here. Okay, we go to 7. This one, the big one, it's still that original one, 7. I cut it off there. Be careful, it's on here. I draw that to number 7. On that I have my 53 cut off, which formulates my C point. That is my C point at 7. That 7 goes through my swivel point over here. Right, just be careful. My swivel point over there. And then I have my 7 point marked off there. 7. Okay, we go to 8. 8 is here. Cut it off on that line there. I draw a line to number 8. line to number 8. On that I measure my 53, which is there, mark it clearly. Alright, that now becomes 8. I draw that point through my small point there. Alright, and I take that 8 point to arc off there, which is my 8 point here. Okay, number 9. I'm here now, number 9. I cut off there. Careful now, it's a lot of lines there. I draw a line to number 9 there, number 9. I measure my 53. There's my 53. I mark that 53 point on, that's number 9, and I draw from that 9 through my swivel point, which is going to be here, swivel point there, and there I arc. That is number 9 that I see there. Okay, points close to one another. 10, second last one, number 10. Cut off here. Keep track of where I cut off. I draw to number 10. At 10, I have my 53 point here. This is form C. That's 10. From that 10 point through my swivel point, which is there, from that 10 point I'm going to have my 10 point there. The last one, 11, my 11th point. So if I go to my 11th, there's my 11th, and I mark it off here. There it is. I draw a line to my 11th point. It's there. Okay, just to make sure where it is. There. So from there you're going to measure 53. 53 is going to be there. I'm going to mark that. That's my 11th point. My 11th point goes through there. 11th point is on there. Take my 90 and 11th point is going to be right here. Okay, and there I've done a lot of points. Now let me first do this one. So you've got to take your pencil and start with number 1 and connect number 1 to number 2 to number 3, make it nice and curvy, to number 4, number 5, to number 6, and go through the points. 6, then 7, then 8, then 9, then 11, back to that one there. So eventually you're going to have something like this, okay? Connecting all the points. We're not really worried about neatness now. Make sure that you have all the points. And then this bottom one is where you start with number 1, number 2, do the points, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, then around here, and you're going to connect that point just like that. Okay, and that's basically what it entails. Slightly tricky, but if you're consistent in what you do, you will end up with that over there.